This is how the AutoTORQ hydraulic chain pipe wrench will ship. These are all of the components that ship with the wrench. We have the drive head, the reaction unit, and the cylinder, plus it ships with 2 flat pads to go on the drive unit for tightening. It ships with 4 sets of cleats for each the drive head and the reaction unit, and each chain comes with 19 links. We'll go over how to count the links. You should make sure when the AutoTORQ arrives that it has all of the links that are supposed to come with each one. It's supposed to have 19 links. The links are counted by counting the notches in between. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. You can change the cleats out for the flat pads by inserting either a hex driver or a punch into the hole and pushing down, and then sliding the cleat out to the side. You have to be careful because when you slide this out, the spring will want to pop out of this hole. We're going to place the flat pad in the slot. It's dovetailed, so we get this ready to go in the slot. We're going to hold the spring down and slide that over the spring and then push it into place, and it'll click into place. You hear that? And that's ready to go. And we'll do the other one here. So we're going to take the cleat out and slide that out. Again, here's where we've got to be careful, making sure the spring doesn't fly out of there. Then we're going to take the flat pad, get it ready to go in the groove, push the spring down and slide it in over the spring, and it clicks into place. When assembling the AutoTORQ hydraulic chain pipe wrench on the pipe, we start with the reaction unit. The reaction unit's black. I'm going to put this on, but I'm also going to show you why the chain is too long and needs to be adjusted. So we put this on the pipe. Just like this, with the understanding that when I set this up, I'm actually setting this up so that I'm going to be pushing away from this nut. So I'm trying to push this arm in this direction when I connect the cylinder to it. But for right now, it's important to understand that this nut on top of this hook will be turned down as far as I can turn it. And what I want you to see is that there's still slack on the chain. And I can't turn this nut down any further, but there's still slack. That means that I need to take slack out of this chain by removing a link. This is how you remove a link. We have splice bolts in the chain, and the nut side takes a 7/16 wrench, and the head of that bolt is a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to put the 1/2 inch on and the 7/16 on here. We're going to loosen that. Take that bolt out and we separate the chain. This chain is a 5-4 combination. So we're going to take a 2-link piece out here. I'll get the other one going here. And here's this 2-link piece. We're going to remove that. Then the chain goes back together with the bolt in it. Now we're back together and ready to go. Okay, first we'll assemble the reaction arm on the pipe. We're going to tighten the nut on this all the way down and take all of the slack out of the chain. You can help yourself doing this by pulling the wrench arm in a little bit towards you as we set this. And you see that this has a cam action on it, that I'm putting slack into the chain. That'll make it easier to turn the nut down by hand until you can't anymore. So I'm going to get this all the way down as tight as I can by hand, and then I'm going to finish it off with a wrench. This nut takes 1 1/4 inch. I'm using 1 1/4 inch combo wrench on this. And just snug that up. And now that's tight on the flange, and then we always want to remember to put a pin in the bolt to keep that nut down for safety reasons. Now we're going to pin the cylinder up to the reaction unit. This is the pin for the reaction block that goes around the cylinder. So we're going to slide this pin through the hole in the reaction unit. And we're going to take the nut, put the nut on the end of the pin, and we're going to make sure to get the keeper pin on the bolt as well. Now we're going to put the drive arm on. And this, before we start tightening this up, we're going to pin up to the clevis. This is the clevis. We're going to use the clevis in this orientation here and pin up to the drive arm. So I'm going to level the cylinder out, and I'm going to line these two pieces up. And again, I do this before I tighten the chain on the drive arm. So I've got the clevis pin in. Again, I'm going to line these up and send the pin through the drive arm, run the nut down, and put the safety pin in. And then I'm going to come over here and take some of the slack, but not all of the slack, out of the drive arm. If I take all of the slack out, it will not ratchet. So you can see I can still move this a little bit as I run the nut down. So I still have a little bit of movement, and this will grab. When working with pressurized hydraulic equipment, the minimum required personal protective equipment are safety glasses, leather palm gloves, and safety toe shoes. Now we're ready to put the hoses on the wrench, and generally we're going to start with the back because it's easier to get on first. So we have a nipple on the back end of the cylinder, so we'll need to put the coupler on that one first. And again, on these types of fittings, we want to make sure that the collar is screwed all the way down, or we'll have hydraulic lock on the hoses. Now we're ready to fasten the nipple to the coupler on the front end of the wrench. And again, we'll slide the collar all the way down on that. And now we're ready to run the wrench. So this wrench is set up in the breakout mode. We're going to be turning this pipe counterclockwise. So you'll see as I hit the button on the pump, I'm going to be hitting the green button to make the wrench go forward, and when I let go of the green button, the wrench will retract. Now this wrench is in the breakout mode. To change to the makeup mode, we're simply going to flip the drive wrench around 180 degrees and flip the reaction arm 180 degrees as well. Then we'll have the cylinder on this side pushing this way. Now you'll notice the wrench is set up in the makeup mode. We've got the pipe rotating clockwise. We're pushing forward on the drive arm. We've just flipped these 180 degrees from where they were in the breakout mode. One of the features of all of the AutoTORQ hydraulic chain pipe wrenches is the lifting eye. Right here on the top of the cylinder reaction block is this lifting point. And what you can do is you can hook up to this lifting point so that when you're done with this particular pipe and you want to do the next one, you can undo both of the chains and then let the chains loose, lift the entire wrench as it's pinned up and not have to take this all apart. Then you'll lower it down, put the chains back on, and you're ready for the next pipe. We're going to go over the anatomy of the pump that's used with the AutoTORQ hydraulic chain pipe wrench. This pump comes with this nice sturdy cage to protect the insides from any harm should it tip over or get tossed, as it might from time to time. First, we have a 10,000 psi gauge. It's worth noting that the AutoTORQ hydraulic chain pipe wrench has a maximum operating pressure of 6,000 psi, so you don't want to go over that. Now, this pump has a four-way valve. Over on this side of this cylinder block, or sorry, not the cylinder block, the valve block, we have this solenoid. This is a spring return solenoid, so when the coil's pulled in, that allows the pressure side to flow to the wrench, and then when you let go of the button, this automatically has a spring that shifts the valve so that the fluid runs back to tank and we have the cylinder retracted. Over here on this side, on the high pressure side, we have a relief valve. This relief valve, if you turn it in, it will progressively allow less and less fluid to flow back to tank, eventually having no fluid flowing back to tank and all pressure. When you turn it clockwise, you're actually closing that orifice. And when you get it to the point where you want it, what you'll do is you'll stroke the cylinder forward and the needle on the gauge will move up as you turn this in. And then when you get to the point you want, you will release it, stroke the cylinder out one more time to make sure that the needle's going to hit that set point again. Then you can lock down with this butterfly screw or butterfly nut, you can lock down the pressure that you set so that it does not change. One thing worth mentioning, this is the pressure side, this is the return side. The pump is set so that the return pressure never exceeds 1500 psi. If you're ever using the wrench and for some reason you can't get the wrench to build more than 1500 psi, that means for some reason someone has swapped these fittings and you're now trying to use the return pressure to stroke the wrench forward. All that you'll need to do is swap these two fittings on this block and you'll fix that problem. The other problem would be that if this is building pressure here at the pump, yet you're not stroking the wrench forward. In that case, you likely don't have these fittings made up all the way and you have hydraulic locks somewhere in the system. Additionally, for the reservoir, you can tell when it's full by looking over here at the sight gauge. This is going to give you your high point and your low point through the sight gauge to know that you have fluid in the reservoir. Then you also have a drain plug down here to drain the oil out of the reservoir. The oil in these units should be changed every 40 hours of operation. So the pump comes without oil. This is the point where we will fill the reservoir with oil. We'll need a funnel to get into this to pour the oil, and then we'll need to read that on the sight gauge to make sure that we've reached the fill point. This is a breather cap, so this is not a shipping plug. That's the reason the pump does not ship with oil. If you fill the reservoir up and try to ship it with just this cap on, it will leak. The pump comes with a remote control pendant. To advance the cylinder, push the green button and hold it down. When you let go of the button, that'll allow the cylinder to return. When you push this green button, it automatically starts the motor on the pump. To stop the motor, push the red button.